Perfect.
All right, we'll get the ball rolling now. Sorry about that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so my talk might be a little different than maybe some of the others. A lot of people are probably talking about ways to improve fish passage, and I might be talking about something to make fish passage a little tougher later on this presentation. But I'm going to be talking about invasive pike on the Kenai, what we've done to try to eradicate them, and the consideration of using barriers down the road, maybe prevent their reentry. But first, a little background. If you don't know it, pike are native to much of Alaska. The red slash marks on this map show the native range, but they never pioneered thousands of years ago to South Central. And the solid red shading shows where invasive pike do occur in South Central right now. And it all started because somebody flew in the float plane floats live pike into Bolchitna Lake in the 1950s, and Bolchitna Lake's up in the Susceptible drainage. And if you fast forward about 70 years, this is what the distribution looks like now. And that resulted from more illegal human introductions and natural dispersal. And this map in the red dots and the red lines show where there's currently known pike populations. Black dots show where pike have been eradicated, and kind of the orange lines and dots, there's a few of those, are drainages that are highly vulnerable still to pike invasion, but they haven't been detected there yet. And this map is not all inclusive. There's quite a few smaller drainages around Cook Inlet that are highly vulnerable that aren't shown on this. So it's a big problem. And in essence, in the right habitat, preferred pike habitat, which is generally shallow, calm, highly vegetated waters, pike are super efficient ambush predators. And with our soft fin fish like salmonids and even spine fish like sticklebacks, when the habitat conditions are right for pike, really conducive to pike, they tend to eat everything. And we've had that occur here on the Kenai and elsewhere, where in some lakes, either the losses of native fish are pretty intense, or they've literally cleaned out the lake of everything but themselves and even cannibalized themselves. So I won't get into the history too much of pike on the Kenai. They were introduced in the 70s in the Soldotna Creek drainage. And over the next 40, 50 years, they expanded. There were a lot more introductions to closed lakes, and they expanded through much of the Soldotna Creek drainage. And by their fishing game didn't do much about it until about the year 2000. And we started mapping their distribution, gathering biological data on them, and we started realizing that we lost a lot of rainbow trout fisheries and had some impacts to some other salmonid fisheries here. And we thought really hard about what can we do to get rid of them. And 2008, we moved into an eradication phase in our pike control work, and it focused on using rotenone to chemically treat lakes to get rid of them. And we were feeling pretty good about it. We had 25 water bodies on the Kenai with pike, and we knocked pike by 2018 out of all the known water bodies, but it didn't take too long till we discovered a new pike population up in the northern tip of the Kenai Peninsula in the Miller Creek drainage, just south of Point Possession. And this picture shows Jerry Strait, one of our technicians, holding a 16-pound female. It's one of the first fish we caught in the drainage, first pike we caught in the drainage. And what's interesting about her is her ear bones, otolith bones, were sent to Dr. Wooler in Fairbanks, who specializes in the analysis of isotopes and bony structures like mammoth tusk and whatnot. And we sent them a number of otoliths, but that big female had a strontium isotope signature in her bones that clearly indicated she was in saltwater for part of her life. And the best he could piece together her life history based on those isotope signatures was this fish reared in the Susceptible drainage and then milled around the estuary and crossed Cook Inlet and entered Miller Creek. Obviously, it must have been two of them because a reproducing population got established there. So this aligns with our long suspected fears that pike could be utilizing Cook Inlet as a migration corridor. Here's the mouth of Miller Creek. You can see Cook Inlet there. It's a small creek. In the spring, the flow is about 35 CFS. Midsummer, it's single digit CFS, sometimes no flow. And I should tell you that pike are known to be tolerant of brackish water. There's no North American studies on their salinity tolerance that I'm aware of, but in Europe, especially countries around the Baltic Sea, a few studies show that they can live out their whole life histories in 10 parts per thousand salt. Cook Inlet's probably averaging in the upper 20s, but at the northern part by Nick River, Susceptible, it's down into the single digits. And Miller Creek is around 15 parts per thousand, which according to literature is probably a little bit beyond what they could tolerate long term. So this spring, we're going to do some salinity tolerance trials using adult and juvenile pike, running through at least 4 different concentrations of salinity that are found in Cook Inlet to give us an idea how long they can survive there. So back to the Miller Creek drainage, the red highlighting on this map shows the distribution of pike in that drainage. And we went in there and did a lot of intensive eDNA sampling and gill netting and whatnot. And what's interesting, if you look at this map, is there's some surrounding lakes that aren't red that are connected. And what looks like to be the cause of that are beaver dams, at least on a couple of the lakes. There is almost no information in pike literature on the jumping abilities of pike like there are for salmonids, but we are finding that fairly low head barriers seem to give some measure of protection for invasion of pike, which has kind of, for me, it kind of got me thinking, right? Is this something that we can put to our advantage? So last fall, we went in there and used a chemical treatment, applied rotenone to the pike waters in the drainage, and we knocked the pike out. So the fear is, what's going to stop the pike from coming back? So the Fish and Wildlife Service, who we've partnered with, installed a picket weir in Miller Creek about a mile from Cook Inlet. And this is great. It's going to stop adult entry of fish, but it's not a permanent solution. As most of you know, weirs like this take a lot of maintenance. They can plug up. And actually, this is a picture of it this weekend. The Kenai Watershed went in there, and it's just glaciating. We expect that breakup. We're going to have to spend a lot of time in there to try to make this fish tight. We have no idea how common it is or how frequently pike attempt to invade new waters along the shoreline of Cook Inlet. That's a big unknown to us. It's probably not a super common event. It's probably related to distance from the known pike waters too, and how long they can tolerate salinity. And I wanted to show some other pictures of structural barriers that we've put in to either prevent pike from expanding their range. This is a screen fence protecting bird pond from the pike population in Miller Creek drainage. Sometimes we use pike nets. This was one that we put in a lake outlet in the Soldotna Creek drainage to prevent pike from re-entering after we had cleaned out the pike with a rotenone treatment. And this one in particular is interesting to me. This is the outlet of Tree Lake, which was infested with pike, and it winter killed in the early 2000s, killed off all the fish. And it had a natural vertical drop in the creek of about 1 foot. And we added some lumber there to make it more of a concise drop. And guess what? The lake repopulated with like juvenile salmonids, but we never got pike in there. And that's only a vertical drop. Now, I don't know if pike ever came back and encountered that weir or not, but we had our hands full knocking pike out of the Soldotna Creek drainage. There's 22 miles of flowing water, multiple lakes with pike. And there's a western branch of the drainage that we treated first in 2014, and we didn't want pike to re-enter while they still existed in nearby Soldotna Creek. And we intentionally installed a perch culvert with about 1 foot drop to prevent pike re-entry. And this was in place for about a year. And we never did detect pike upstream of it. And we've since removed pike from the creek and everywhere else in the drainage. So maybe a vertical drop barrier could work. I don't know. There's a gal, Taylor Cubbage, who's working on her master's thesis right now, and it's the physiological performance of northern pike and implications for barrier designs. And this summer in Montana, she ran a bunch of trials of jump tests from 10 to 65 centimeters with different depths of pools, plunge pools, and flows ranging from 180 to 680 gallons per minute, trying to simulate kind of small creek systems. And as you might think, as the barrier heights increase, passage success decline. And she showed that the moderate depth pools actually promoted more successful leaps than deeper plunge pools or shallower. Flow rates didn't affect jump success. And the mid-sized pike had greater leaping success than one smaller or larger than, the 650 millimeter kind of mid-sized pike. And she's still assessing whether individual pike body condition, sex, age can affect their leap success. And this is what the trials look like. This is, of course, looking down. You can see a couple pike in that plunge pool on the left side and the vertical challenge that's in front of them. And this is sort of a side view of the flow through system with the plunge pool, barrier, upper pool. And she actually pit tagged the pike so she could determine when and if they reached above the vertical drop barrier. And she was kind enough to give us this footage, and here's a pike trying to get over a fairly low head barrier. And it's really difficult for a pike to clear the water a full body length, is what I've seen from the videos I've watched. I wish it was a brighter video. I think this was taken at night. And here's a pike that did succeed going over. They really get their heads out of the water and kind of look at what they're facing. It's interesting. So what does this all mean? Is there, for small streams, a vertical barrier design that we can come up with that might prevent upstream pike movement and still allow salmons to pass? That's a question I have. The jury's out on that. The thing with a vertical drop barrier, they're very low maintenance compared to almost any other kind of barrier design where debris is going to easily plug up. And would a barrier to be considered successful need to stop all the pike? We think it's a fairly infrequent event based on different weirs we have in Cook Inlet tributaries that pike attempt to enter. So if you can have a barrier that stops 90% of the pike, maybe that's good enough. It takes 2 to start a reproducing population. And if the spacing of pike entries into new waters is a rare, very rare event, it might be keeping 90% out would protect that system for a long time. A lot of questions aren't known, but I just wanted to, I appreciate the opportunity to give this presentation and to be thinking down the road in vulnerable systems that have lots of pike habitat and that support a lot of native fish populations that are important. When we look at culverts and we look at options that allow fish passage, we may want to weigh in the pike equation too. And maybe there's a sweet spot there where a low head barrier that can allow most native fish to pass and keep out most of the pike. And that's really all I have. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Really interesting talk. One question that came up right away. Do you think that the juvenile salmon passed the vertical pike barrier, or were the barriers navigated by adult salmon and then the juveniles were hatched above the barrier?
The example I gave at Tree Lake, where we had that vertical drop challenge that we found juvenile salmonids rearing upstream of it, it's almost certain that it wasn't adults because above that barrier is a second beaver dam, and we have never detected adults in that stretch. And I'll add, looking at some of the literature about a week ago, there was a study that someone did that was trying to replicate passage through beaver dams by juvenile salmonids, and they were trying to replicate kind of like pore size and obstacles simulating a beaver dam. It was pretty interesting that a lot of these juvenile fish were able to wiggle their way through stuff that would, stop an adult fish.
One more question right away just came in. How do the various pike control methods, such as rotenone barriers, affect native fish?
Yeah, so the downside with rotenone, it's going to kill everything. So we have to be really selective, and we spend more time on native fish rescue work than anything else, and that can involve collecting with minnow traps and entanglement nets as many native fish as we can and putting them in a safe area before we return them. And that's what we have ongoing right now in Miller Creek. We moved hundreds of native fish out of the treatment area into a nearby pond, and at ice out, we're going to go in there and let those fish back in.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else have any other questions before we move on from Rob's talk? Here's one for you. Have you mapped streams for more susceptible? Sorry, have you mapped streams that are more susceptible to pike?
Not per se. Most of the vulnerable systems are very low gradient. There are those warm water lake dominated systems, and but as far as, I'm not sure what they mean by mapping, just mapping the hydrology or the gradients or what, but some of that exists, but we haven't really done that other than we map lakes where we detect pike, that because we need that bathymetry to treat it appropriately. And of course we or some of our partners like the Kenai Watershed Forum will physically map and walk the corridors and identify hydrology inputs into the streams that have pike. So we know where they could be in systems that we're going to treat, but there's a lot of waters out there that aren't extensively mapped because we haven't detected a problem there yet.
Yeah, I'm assuming from that question that they've meant maybe are there streams that you guys know about and have flagged in terms of being more susceptible to pike invasion for one reason or another?
Yeah, it was in one of my earlier slides. And there's a guy at Fish and Game who his grad thesis kind of looked into that. He identified a lot of northern Cook Inlet tributaries, not a lot, but some that are pretty vulnerable, like off the Matsu and stuff. And again, it's the preferred habitat where there's some low gradient waters, and it's got the ingredients where pike could do well. Pike can certainly travel through all kinds of water, fast glacial rivers, but to sustain and reproduce in any kind of numbers, they need that calmer, deep, calmer lake habitat or slow moving streams with lots of vegetation. That's where they do well. So really anywhere in South Central that has that habitat's vulnerable. And
Sure.
we certainly on the Kenai, there's some small drainages that flow directly into Cook Inlet. It's very similar to Miller Creek, but a little bit smaller scale that we haven't mapped, but they're highly vulnerable just based on their characteristics of being low gradient, and they're connected to lake system with a lot of vegetation.
Yeah, are those maps available for the public to find in terms of,
Yeah, so
are they prioritized?
If you go to the Fish and Game website, there's various links, usually at the top of the homepage, there's one under fishing, and through that link, the fishing link, you can go to I'm trying to think what it is called. It's an interactive mapping for known pike distributions, and I can post on the comments the link to that here in just a little bit, so people can see where areas that are suspect for pike and where pike have been confirmed or eradicated.
Okay, yeah, that'd be a great resource. I'm sure folks would enjoy looking at. Here's an interesting question. Is there any information on non-physical barriers for pike, such as bubble barriers, or bubble screens, I guess? Do those work on pike?
Yeah, I'm not aware of much for studies that have used pike, but of course, lots of other fish using electrical barriers, bubble barriers. We've certainly looked into that. I can't say anything's very promising. Pike have some of the fastest burst speeds of any freshwater fish. They're pretty hardy too. And and the main thing is with those barriers is maintenance. A lot of these areas are remote, hard to get to, and to keep something that requires power for bubbles or electricity where it's remote, and to do it year round under icing conditions is an engineering challenge, to say the least. The vertical drop barrier is appealing because it's mimicking what's already occurring in nature with beaver dams. And we're just basically being human beavers perhaps down the road.
Is there a worry about flooding conditions then, rising up to the point where that vertical drop could be overcome by
Oh,
pike?
sure. I don't think there's any barrier design that's going to be always functional. I think the best we can do is, I think the best a barrier can do is to put the odds in our favor to prevent entry. And there's going to be windows and opportunities that we have no control over. And, but again, if it's a rare event, and there was a video weir at the mouth of Miller Creek that the Fish and Wildlife operated during the open water season of 2020, and no pike showed up at the video weir. And there's some other examples of weirs close to Cook Inlet too, where we're not seeing pike or very rarely. So again, to be successful, we might not need 24/7 all year round great pike prevention. Maybe we just need to have it most of the time.